I'm thrilled, excited. I don't know what the right word is to share with you how I use the moon as my calendar. And I use it in a way that my body said to use it. I didn't have any classes, I didn't have any instructions, it was just instinct. It started before I even knew April or anything about the moon as my calendar because of Emma Kupu. And she got me to start to track the moon just on a piece of paper. And I did that all through 2019. And then as 2019 was ending, Emma said, you know, Janet, you would like to, this is my first one, work with April McMurtry on the moon is my calendar. And I had already, because of playing with that piece of paper, gone, you know what? The moon is my calendar. But everything exploded open when this arrived. And of course, talk about perfect timing. It was the wild year, right? Of 2020. Now, because I didn't have any instructions. I just opened it and began just instinctively to jot down what happened, how much sleep I got, an idea that came through, an intensive that opened. At the same time, I had started to say the rosary, and I started tracking the rosaries that I said. I don't know what the rest of the world uses that inner circle for, but it's my rosary, and I'll give myself a little note that I said it in the living room or I said it on the trail and what rosaries I said. So I simply began to use it. It's automatic. First thing in the morning, I call my mystic circle. I get all comfy with my coffee and I have my journal on my lap at all times. I will have a book with me that I'm reading. Right now, I'm obsessed with witches. So this, but there could be 5 books. And I say my prayers, and I always get out my the moon is my calendar. And the first thing I put on it is my temperature. Now, Janet never gave a shit about tracking her temperature, but my son, as COVID was landing, is living in Queens, New York, like 2 blocks away from the hospital and he just said, Mom, you have to take your temperature every day. I said, oh, for heaven's sakes, Jerry. But just to make him happy, I put my temperature on the thing. And then I started to begin to notice, oh, the sleep I get, the ideas that come. There's a rhythm here. I don't understand it. I don't necessarily get it, but I just throw like spaghetti on the wall things that happen. And you can see how this is like evolving for December of 2019, the beginning of January of 2020. At the end of the month, I go, yeah, well, what happened? What was this all about? And there's not a lot here. You'll notice there's a lot of white spaces, but I wrote, oh, the Queen's love. That's the prayer that we'll be opening every gathering of the through the lunar looking glass. Talk about through the lunar looking glass. Um, that's what that month was about. And then I start now. You can see I'm starting to go, there's more happening here. And I still, this is when I think I started my temperature and I track my classes and what I did. And oh, look, it says here, Jerry and his girlfriend came to visit. But I'm not yet, you'll notice there's nothing circled, but there's all the spaghetti on the wall. And at the end of the month, my synopsis for this month is simply that I prayed for my son because we had to get him through the bar, which he passed the bar. Now, February and March, it's still Lots of white spaces, not quite as much spaghetti on the wall, because I'm slowly building a relationship with this thing. I don't know what it's going to teach me. I don't know how looking at my life through this lunar, because this is not a linear, it's not a patriarchal, it's not a set your goals in advance. If you hang out with me, you know my tolerance for that word is zero because it's so linear. I want X and I will take these 19 steps to get X. Well, then I'm going to miss the magic. I'm going to miss the mystical wisdom that the universe really has in store for me. So each month I just keep going, not necessarily understanding what I'm doing, but that's fun. Why wouldn't you want to do this every morning? Oh, look. Sunday. Oh, yeah. I was rereading the books. I always read in the spring about Mary Magdalene. Now, things are getting fuller. I'm starting to sort of realize, ooh, I want to put that on my lunar calendar. Ooh, I want to do this. Ooh, I want to do that. Oh, yeah. This is when anointing came through. Look at this. This is when the five original prayers came through because this is when, okay, now we really are under quarantine. You're not going anywhere. You're not moving to New York. You're not traveling. You're not going to Scotland. And while the rest of the world was complaining and fussing, I went, yeah, well, okay. I'm a 100% introvert on the Myers-Briggs. Trap me alone in my house with my books and my journal. And as long as I can get on the computer and have some prayer intensives, this was a magical month. This was the month that I realized that as a prayer artist, one of the gifts I'm here to give the world are the five original prayers. Janet did not come up with that. It was given to me sitting outside in my Chase lounge with this on my lap and my journal. And then, because it was such a magical year, you can see, oh, we're getting, there's more and more and more going on here. Plus my faithful temperatures so that I could tell my son I was still healthy and still alive. He could stop worrying about me. This is a hoot to look back. Look at this. Intense rosaries, right? Because it was a big novena with the Way of the Rose. But I wouldn't remember that. But now I just glance at it and there it is. Now I want to show you what happened in August. This is when I started going, whoa, I got to pay attention here. And at the end of every month, not that anybody else has to do what I do. This is simply, I simply wanted to share with you how much I love this thing and what a mystical mirror it is for me. As I'm living through it, I don't understand how my life is unfolding. I don't understand the mystical magic. I don't understand. And I don't even want to try to understand. I want to let it happen, let it enter my body, let these fabulous ideas come, like there are five ancient original prayers that are pre-patriarchy. I couldn't, that's not in any book. You know, I couldn't figure that out, but I want to capture when it happens. Well, last summer was pure magic. On Sunday, August 2nd, and I'm going to get teary sharing this with you. I received an email from Rabbi Tirza Firestone, who had led, because one of the five original prayers is the Tree of Life, she had led a Tree of Life intensive with me in May. And my publisher said, you know, we want to relaunch Writing Down Your Soul, which is the book most people know me for, and she's 12 years old now. So they wanted to have a new cover, and they wanted some new endorsements because the endorsements on the back cover were written in 2007. I said, sure. And so I asked Perdita Finn and Clark Strand of The Way of the Rose, and I asked Rabbi Tirza, everybody that taught in an intensive with me. This is the day. This is the day my life changed, only I didn't know it. but I did write it on my lunar calendar on that day. My handwriting is dreadful, so I'm not sure that you can read it, but it says, Tears is endorse. The camera won't focus yet, but that says Tears is endorse. So she sends me this endorsement for writing down your soul. And the first sentence is, Janet Conner is a blah, 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 and 21st century witch. I burst into tears when I got it. I said, oh, she sees me. Wow. So I bundled all these fabulous endorsements, sent it to my publisher, and I copied my agent. I got an email back immediately saying, you can't use that word. What do you mean I can't use that word? Well, she was all freaked out because it has been a word that has been thrown, particularly at women, for never mind just the burning period of 300 years. Let's just look at Jezebel in the Old Testament, right? That poor thing, they throw these horrible words, and it continues to today. Right now, today, 2021, there are women in Ghana in particular that are running for their lives, and they finally, if they're going to survive, end up in a few towns where they're protected. This word witch has been used by patriarchy, but you know what that word really means? I'm studying it. It means sacred and wise and turning and returning. It means turning. Let's just think about our moon. She's been teaching us, she's the ultimate witch. She has been teaching us about life, death, and rebirth, turning and returning since before there was slime on this planet, right? Never mind humans. And so I slowly embraced this word. And sure enough, if you turn the calendar on, it's a big deal. Where's my date? This is why I need it on the calendar, because it's not memorized in here. But it came to pass after fussing with her for, I don't know, a week or two, that I fired her. And I wrote it on this calendar. And you know what happened 4 days later? I was awakened in the middle of the night taking dictation for a children's book, resacralizing, sanctifying, energizing this word. And now, when I go back and look at this, this is a treasure now. I can see the evolution, which arrived. I had to sit with it. I had to say yes to it. I had to fire my agent who wanted me to say no. And the proof that that was the right thing to do is suddenly 2 different books just arrive. Hello? What? I'm doing what? And right now, this many months later, I'm in the process, with the help of the ultimate witch of all time, Jeanne d'Arc, creating a novena to resacralize, to tell the stories of 13 witches in time. None of that would have happened without the witch word being given to me by a woman I revere, and then me, piece by piece. I didn't know that come spring of 2021 that I would be creating the Return of the Witches Jeanne d'Arc Listening Novena, but I can now look at my calendar, and there it is, piece by piece by piece. So one day, I showed April my calendar, and she said, what? I said, yeah, I just throw spaghetti on the wall. I have no idea. But then at the end of the month, not during it, at the end of the month, I go, oh, this is what happened. So this year, I ordered, again, this is this year's, and I like this one. It's nice and big. I have more room to write in the margins, right? And I'm Doing what I always do. I'm tracking, and I love being able to know very quickly what the new and the full moon are. So here I am right now in the middle of this particular lunar cycle. But at the same time, April sent the journal. I looked at this thing. I went, oh, this is lovely. This is informative. This is great. But I don't use it. I, it's still blank. I love this. So when April and I were talking about through the lunar looking glass, she said, oh, I use this as a reference. And if we look behind her, we can see it on the wall, but she fills out this one every day. So I said, okay, we have to have a little bonus video. There obviously is no one way. There is no right. There is no wrong. It's the moon, right? This is our teacher, not April, not Janet. She's the mother. She's the one showing the way. And so I think every one of us, whether you're in through the lunar looking glass prayer intensive with April and me in April, opening on the day of the new lunar cycle, or you're watching this at another time and for another reason, April and I simply wanted to throw a little spaghetti on the wall to say, here's a way Janet uses it, here's the way April uses it, and then you go and play. And the moon, I think, will show you, this is the sign for show, she'll show you how you can be in communion with the moon. Now, there's one more thing I want to tell you, and then April's going to show us how she uses the journal. This just happened. It happened this week. A friend of mine who's living in Germany and is in a current intensive on somatic writing sent me a little private Facebook message and said, hey, do you mind if I run your human design? I don't know what that is, but sure. If it would make you happy to run my human design, go ahead. Well, she needed my birth information. So whatever human design is, it's kind of sort of related to astrology. I don't know what it is, but will you listen to this? I'm going to look over at my Facebook to read it to you. She sent me the next day this. She said, okay, I'm astonished. You're a reflector. 1% of the population are reflectors. You're here to be a karmic mirror for the collective. That sure sounds like the witch thing to me. And listen to this. The way you are supposed to receive body wisdom, and that's an important word to me. My wisdom is here in my body. It's not here in my mind. The way you are supposed to receive body wisdom is through, in all caps, lunar authority, exclamation point. I looked at this and went, what? It says you are meant to track the cycles of the moon and take 28 days to make decisions. Well, I can prove that to you. I mean, there's like the day it came in, the day I said yes, blah, 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 28 days, decision by decision by decision, finally bringing me to the place where I'm offering you this prayer intensive with April, and finally to the place where I'm ready to create the Return of the Witches, Jeanne d'Arc, listening novena. And I think all of this is happening and landing in my body because of this exquisite. The moon is my calendar. The moon is April's calendar. The moon is your calendar, and your body knows it. Whether you choose to throw spaghetti on the wall like Janet or fill out your journal. So April, how do you use it?
I love seeing you connect the dots, and I love, in that process of being in a space of not necessarily understanding in the moment. Why is this happening, or what is this going to mean? So in a similar way, this is what started um, the first calendar was produced as a journal, and then the wall calendars came later as there was more mandalas that people were creating. And I was like, ooh, art and the moon. And like, yeah, like you said, I use it for a reference, to kind of locate myself, just looking and seeing the big picture. So the inside of mine, in a similar way, there's a lot of spaghetti here. But since there isn't as much room for writing, then there's 2 pages that have the phase by phase, and then that's where I write things. And some of it really is mundane, like, okay, I mean, it's not mundane, it's great, it's my life, but some of it has meaning that unfolds later, and some of it is, so I'd say it's a similar process. This has a space for the seeds of intention. And I know what you said about the goal of having something in advance. And this, a lot of it is like, what are the reminders and the practices that I'm intentionally bringing into the next lunar cycle? Like this one, and I'll make a little symbol for myself. And this one says, I connect with my heart space before speaking or acting. And I put a little musical notes, because it was the cycle for me where I realized, like, oh, the different ways to open space and connect, and the sounds or the words that came through was that my heart beats with the one heart. And so if I'm wondering, like, what am I supposed to do right now? Like, what is next? That place of unknown, then I say, okay, my heart beats with the one heart, and my heart beats with the one heart. And that's a reminder for myself, so that some things will come through in my experience and in tracking with the moon. And this gives them a place to live. It gives them a home, like the good, the bad, the ugly. And for me, because it's almost been 7 years now, I can look back where I started, and there's a whole progression that I can see, the unfolding, and I can see the things that I return to, the themes. And it is a snapshot. So yours is even more of a snapshot because it's the one page, and then mine has, for someone who's working with this, the daily observation, and then this reflect and release. I mean, for me, sometimes it's words, and sometimes it's symbols and drawings, and sometimes it's quotes. I actually, before I met you or knew your work, Janet, I was in a rosary. I'm still in a rosary group that meets on the new moon. And something came up, and someone said, oh, it's like the path to the path. Like Janet Conner says, it's like the path to the path. So on one of these pages, I should find out which cycle it is. It says, the path to the path. And I wrote, and then I give the credit to the quotes, Janet Conner. I'm like, who is Janet Conner? I'm going to go look up this website. So it would be very interesting. I guess it must have been last year. And
let me tell you the background of that.
Let me go find my calendar because I want to see that, and you share, and I'm still listening.
Okay. So Janet did not come up with the path to the path. My son, long, complicated story, was a political prisoner. He refused to give the federal government the names of other activists in New York City. And the judge said, don't you know what I could do to you? And sent him to prison. Okay, well, so I contacted the masters and teachers of the Akashic Record. They're the ones that came up with the path to the path. So they gave me this prayer practice. I got people to join in on the prayer practice. My son was released before the secret federal grand jury was unseated, which was kind of a miracle and might have saved his life. And then he struggled mightily because of horrific PTSD, self-medicating, and it took him a long time to find his way. But eventually he did find his way and went to law school, just graduated as a new attorney in New York City. Wow. With the sole intention of preventing the government from sending other people to prison. So I'm having a conversation with the masters and teachers, as I do so often. I had a conversation with them when prayer artists came. Excuse me, I need a little help. What does this mean? And when witch came, we're having chats, okay? And towards the end of the conversation about witch, I always bring my precious son up, and I simply said thank you. That's it. I'm sobbing, and I said thank you so much for helping me help him. And they're the ones that said, now I'm not going to say it as elegantly as they spoke, but it is connected to Mother Moon. They said he couldn't find his way. Your prayers and your love helped him find the path to the path. He couldn't see the path. Well, neither could Janet. I didn't have it in my head, I want my son to become an attorney. The path to the path. And then they said, it's the love of the mother. So suddenly I realized they're not talking about this one mother. They're talking about the mother. And I always call the moon Mother Moon. So is she the Black Madonna? Is she the moon? Is she is simply the goddess, the divine feminine by any and all her names. They said, and I'm going to try to say it as elegantly as they did. The love of the mother makes the unknown known. Now take that phrase and put it here. The love of the mother makes the unknown known. So my job is just to go, oh, this idea came. Oh, I mean, where do you think I got call April and let's do a prayer intensive? The love of the mother makes the unknown known. And that for me is what this precious, I don't want to call it a tool. How did you put it? It's the home. There's a place for these things to live, these ideas, these feelings, these experiences. This is home. They have a safe home. And somehow, as I turn and return along with the moon, noticing what she wants me to notice, the love of the mother makes the unknown known. That's the mystical life. So thank you for giving me credit, but it belongs to the masters and teachers of the Akashic Record.
Well, it's helped me, so thank you. And how things can travel in the unseen world. I feel like that is that part of, they traveled to you and they came by way of
like Mystic Witch. I didn't ask anybody to call me a witch. I just asked Tirza, could I have an endorsement? And so what told her, she is devoted to Shekhinah, I don't say that correctly, the divine feminine in the Hebraic tradition, the Shekhinah, who is Mother Mary, who is the Black Madonna, who is Sophia, who is Shakti, who is Kali, say, Tirza, call her a witch, so that she can realize that she is and has been in multiple lifetimes, right? It's this is just the mystery of turning and returning. So the moon's talking to Tirza, who's talking to Janet, who puts it on her calendar, who fires her agent, who is suddenly in cahoots with Jeanne d'Arc, and who invites April, hey, come and help us all make the unknown known in communion with Mother the Moon. You couldn't plan that. You couldn't make that up. It's not linear.
And that's the bridge. And that's why I love sharing this work. And that's why I keep learning, because like you've said, I'm a student of this. It wasn't something I set out to like, okay, when I'm in my late 30s, I'm going to burn out and I'm going to need to find another path. And I won't know what that other path is until the moon shows me the other path and how to get to the next place.
Yeah, like I said on my 72nd birthday, you know what I want to do this year? I want to declare that I am a mystic witch and redefine. But she wanted me to, right? I think this is just glorious. This is play,
Yeah.
but it's divine play. And I am so grateful that
Mm.
you listened to the moon calling you to show us all that the moon, there was no solar calendar. The Catholic Church and a pope made up the solar calendar. It is as patriarchal and linear as a thing can possibly be. I mean, really, do we think 5,000 years ago people were turning pages on a calendar and naming the months? No, they looked up.
Mhm.
There was only one calendar. There was only one calendar. There is still only one calendar. The moon is my calendar.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, it's that bridge. I feel like the way that we can, any way that we can bridge and create that, what's flattens something out as linear, and whatever the sequence is, yeah, connecting that linear back into the circle. And the sun, as my husband worked on this calendar with me, and he was an accomplice in the creating of the Moon is My Calendar and the New Moon Calendar Journal, and is very solar and is very sequential and linear. And so I had to translate my own intuitive, more sort of nebulous description into how to put something into form, into structure, and how the sun, and this is the first year that the sun and the moon both appear together.
Oh.
Because he did have that feeling, that I do feel like some men have, of like, if it's all the moon and the moon is only feminine, then like, am I just not a part of this? And am I, on the outside? And so this is the first year where it's like, here's this weaving and the interweaving of the solar and the lunar, and it's all a dance with each other. It's all a dance, and here we are on Earth as a part of that dance on
Well,
Earth.
you're right, because we as women, I always think of the moon being in communion with my womb.
Mhm,
But if we look at the moon moving the tides
mhm,
for every animal, every tree, everything, and the moon is able to move them because they're water.
yeah.
But all human bodies, not just female bodies, are, I don't know if I've always heard the number is 78%. Whatever it is, it's lots and lots and lots and lots of water. We're water, right? The
Mhm,
blood is water. The air is carrying droplets of water. We're water. Well, men are water too. And men have a second chakra, a sacral chakra. They have a creative chakra. So maybe the great work is that, okay, women remember who they are, women open to the moon, but then we turn to our brothers and go, you know what? You're a water body too. When the masters and teachers first talked to me about prayer artists, that happened in February of 2018. I think this fits exactly what we're talking about. They started the conversation through Laura Lynn Gunn by showing me something.
mhm,
No talking. So she simply expresses what she's being shown. They showed her 6 women dancing around a fire with soft flowing dresses and flowers in our hair, and we're just having a grand old time. Now I knew they were showing me this is how we prayed.
mhm,
6 women. And so I'm seeing it in my mind's eye as Laura Lynn is describing it. And then they said, the circle got a little bit bigger as more women joined. And the circle got a little bit bigger as more women joined. And the circle got a little bit bigger as a few men joined. And the circle expanded and expanded and expanded until everyone was
mhm,
in the circle. So I interpret that. They didn't give me an interpretation, but I see it as we got to go first. We got to pay attention to our bodies that have been abused by patriarchy for 5,000 years. Because right from the get go, every patriarchal religion said the purpose of religion is to transcend the body, get out
mhm.
of the body. Your body is sinful and temptation and blah, 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 blah. Well, we got to undo 5,000 years of that shit, right?
Mhm.
So we're doing it. We're doing it. This is a big, big part of it. Everything that happens to my body is holy. Now, I'm not menstruating, obviously, anymore, but I noticed that a lot of women use this to notice when they're
Mhm.
menstruating. Well, in a lot of religions, menstruating is like dirty. No, it's not. So we're the first people around the fire, which of course would be at night. And we're dancing and we're loving our bodies and loving one another. And we're singing and we're chanting and we're waking to the moon. But then we say to the men, come on, come on, come on. And they come. So I'm hoping men will join The Moon is My Calendar too.
Yeah,
Do you have any men reporting on using
there's
it?
a handful. There's a handful, and I did get a message from somebody who had that feeling of like, I feel so drawn to the moon, and so often there's this like, it only belongs to women, that kind of barrier, you know. And I can see that because I've most of my life there's been a healing around the feminine for me as well.
Right, we're so busy. I mean, I do feel that way. It's like, you just stay over there, fella. We have serious, glorious, ecstatic work to do. And there's been 5,000 years of the body isn't holy. So excuse me while I realize just this body is so holy that it is Sophia. It is Shakina. It is Shakti. But once I get that, well, then why wouldn't I want to say, oh, now, you want to play with Shakti? You want to play with Sophia? Come on. But only if you realize that your body's holy too. That's this, the sacralizing of the body, male and female, is the work of the moment. That's what the whole witch thing is about. Their bodies were tortured. This is about hating the body. And this gives me the opportunity, just the simple thing of, I write my temperature every day, right? It's a body function. I notice how much sleep I get. That's a body function. This is a very important, I'm coming home to my
Body, yeah. And I think that space in the room of connecting with nature in a way for people who are non-binary, also in a way that it's like there's the principles of the sun and the moon and the masculine and the feminine, and seeing even the expansion of an identity that's, you know, both based in like the physical realm of a body and also in so many realms. And so that I feel like creating, because it was never the intention of like this is only for women, um, and and seeing how we are all a part of nature and a part of cycles, and whatever, you know, whatever path then leads into that, to make that a place where however we identify and know ourselves, um, can be a part of that, you know, that can be welcomed within that. Um, and there is, you know, it hits home, and it's like in hearing you speak and where your work has led to with the witch and the the healing of the wounds and the torture to the body, and like what was trying to be eradicated. And it's like it's not gone, and it's reviving and resurrecting, and it's bringing the power, because that was like what was so threatening and so powerful, that much torture had to occur. There's some power, you know, the power that you're unlocking too with your work. So I want to thank you, and thank you for this conversation and everything that it's brought in. Yes.
And so April and I invite you to use The Moon is My Calendar any way the moon guides.
Yeah.
And you will undoubtedly discover your own, oh, but this is what I'm doing. And we'd love to see and hear how these home tools help you discover just how holy and sacred you and your emotions and your body and your mystical life really are. Thank you, April. Love you.
Thank you.